I don't know why I clicked that link. It was late, well past midnight, and the blue glow of my laptop screen was the only thing illuminating my cramped apartment. The air was heavy with the smell of stale coffee and burnt-out ambition. I'd been diving into the deep web for weeks, chasing a morbid curiosity. Forums, hidden marketplaces, and obscure chat rooms had become my nightly haunts. It all seemed like a game until it wasn't. The link appeared innocuous at first, abyss.onion. The thread on the forum had been cryptic, just a single post that read, "If you want to see something you'll never forget, click here." I hesitated, my cursor hovering over the link. My heart beat faster, but the rational part of me whispered, it's probably just some troll site. Maybe a shock image, maybe a scam. But I clicked it anyway. The page loaded slowly, the screen flickering slightly as if my laptop was struggling to process whatever it was pulling up. The background was pitch black, and in the center of the page was a single line of text, "Enter your name to proceed." I chuckled nervously. Typical deep web dramatics, I thought. I typed in a fake name, Jake, and hit enter. The screen went black. Seconds passed, maybe a minute. Then, in faint white text, letters began to type themselves out. "Hello, Jake. Welcome to the abyss." I swallowed hard, leaning closer to the screen. The text dissolved, replaced by a grainy live video feed. It was a dark room, lit only by a bare, swinging light bulb. In the center of the room, a chair. On the chair, a man. The man was tied up, his head slumped forward, his face obscured by matted hair. Blood dripped from his nose, pooling on the concrete floor beneath him. He wasn't moving. A chat box appeared at the bottom of the screen. Messages flooded in, usernames popping up in rapid succession. Watcher 123, "Do it already." Nightmare 4, "What's the holdup?" Enderx, "Make him scream." My hands hovered over the keyboard, trembling. This can't be real. It had to be some kind of sick art project, right? A dark performance piece meant to scare the gullible. But then the man stirred. He let out a low, guttural moan, his head lolling to one side. The blood was fresh. The chat exploded. Shadow Wrath, "He's waking up. Perfect timing." Reaper 19, "New guy should pick." Watcher 123, "Yeah, let Jake decide." My breath caught in my throat. New guy? How did they? Before I could think, the screen flickered. A new message appeared, bold and red. "Jake, you've been chosen. Make your decision." Below it were two options. End his suffering. Let it continue. I shoved my chair back, almost knocking it over. This was insane. There was no way this was real. Couldn't be. My shaking fingers hovered over the mouse, hesitating. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear myself think. And then, the man on the screen lifted his head. His eyes locked onto the camera. Bloodshot, wide, filled with terror, and then something else. Recognition. "Jake!" he croaked. I froze. My name wasn't Jake. It wasn't even close. But somehow he knew. The chat erupted. Shadow Wrath, "Oh, he knows him. This is gonna be good." Nightmare 4, "Do it, Jake. Pick one." Enderx, "He's waiting." I slammed my laptop shut, my heart racing. For a moment, the room was silent except for my ragged breathing. Then faintly I heard a sound, a soft ding. I slowly opened the laptop again. The page was still there, but now the feed was different. The man was gone. Instead, the camera was pointed at my apartment. I blinked, my stomach lurching. The view was unmistakable. My cluttered desk, the empty coffee mug, the crumpled blanket on my couch. The timestamp in the corner of the feed was current. It was live. A new message appeared in the chat box. We're closer than you think. Panic gripped me. I shot up, locking my apartment door and peering out the peephole. The hallway was empty. I checked the windows. They were shut and locked. My phone buzzed on the desk, and I jumped. A new text. Unknown number. Running won't help. We see you. I didn't think. I grabbed my laptop, yanked the battery out, and stuffed it into my backpack. Then I ran. Down the stairs, out the door, and into the cold night. My only thought was to get away. But from what? From who? As I rounded the corner, my phone buzzed again. Another text. You can't escape the abyss. I stopped, my breath visible in the frigid air. My hands shook as I turned the phone off and shoved it into my pocket. I flagged down a cab and gave the driver an address. My brother's place, far across town, somewhere safe. But as the cab pulled away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. It's been 3 weeks. I've changed apartments, switched phones, and wiped my laptop clean. I've stayed off the DeepWeb entirely, but it hasn't helped. The texts still come, always from different numbers. You can't hide, Jake. We're still watching. The abyss never lets go. Last night, I found a flash drive taped to my front door. There was no note, no explanation. Against my better judgment, I plugged it into my new laptop. There was only one file on it, a video. It was footage of me, sitting at my desk, staring at the screen in horror. And behind me, just barely visible in the shadows, was a figure. I haven't slept since. I'd always been curious about the deep web, the idea that there were hidden layers of the internet, concealed beneath what everyone else could see, was both terrifying and exhilarating. It started harmlessly enough: chat rooms, forums, even some low-tier black market sites. It was all just digital voyeurism. I didn't buy anything. I didn't talk to anyone. I was just looking. But curiosity doesn't have a bottom, does it? You keep digging, keep clicking, because you think there's something more to find. One night, I stumbled across a thread titled, "Do you dare enter the silent room?" The description was vague. A live experience unlike anything you've ever seen. Must watch alone. Headphones recommended. I should have closed my laptop right then and there, but I didn't. The link took me to a plain black site. No fancy graphics, no disturbing images, just a single button that said enter. Below it was a disclaimer. By clicking, you agree to bear witness to what happens. No turning back. My fingers hovered over the mouse. No turning back. Felt ridiculous. It was probably some edgy horror video or a jump scare, but my heart was pounding. Against every instinct screaming at me to stop, I clicked enter. The screen went black. I waited, my pulse quickening. After a few seconds, white text appeared. Welcome to the silent room. There was no sound, no music, just silence. Then the feed loaded. It was a dimly lit room, empty except for a single wooden chair in the center. The walls were made of rough concrete, stained and cracked. There were no windows, no doors, no sign of life. The camera was fixed, unmoving, like it was bolted to the wall. I leaned closer to the screen, my headphones amplifying the dead silence. I could hear my own breathing, my heart thudding in my chest. Nothing happened for what felt like minutes. Just the empty chair, the stillness, the oppressive quiet. And then I saw it. A shadow flickered at the edge of the frame. I froze, squinting at the screen. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but something had moved. My mouse cursor hovered over the browser's close button, but I didn't click it. Couldn't look away. The shadow moved again, closer this time. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, a figure stepped into view. It was a man, or at least it looked like one. He was tall, gaunt, and pale, with dark hollows where his eyes should have been. He wore a tattered suit, the fabric torn and hanging loosely off his skeletal frame. His head tilted slightly, as if he were listening for something. He walked to the chair, his movements jerky and unnatural, like a puppet being yanked by invisible strings. He sat down, his head drooping forward. The screen flickered, and white text appeared again. "He can hear you. Don't make a sound." My heart stopped. It was absurd. I was alone in my apartment wearing headphones, but the warning felt real. I took a deep, shaky breath and held it. The man on the screen didn't move. Minutes passed, maybe longer. My chest ached from holding my breath, but I didn't dare exhale too loudly. Suddenly, the man's head snapped up. His face turned toward the camera, as if looking straight at me. I said, "Don't make a sound." The voice didn't come from my headphones. It came from behind me. I whipped around, my chair scraping against the floor. The room was empty. My heart was racing, my skin clammy. Slowly, I turned back to the screen. The man was gone. The chair was empty again, the room silent and still. My hands trembled as I moved to close the browser. But just as I was about to click, the video feed shifted. Now it was showing my room. I froze. The angle was from above, like a hidden camera in the corner of my ceiling. The feed showed me sitting at my desk, staring at the screen. "Don't turn around," the text on the screen said. But I did, and there he was. The man from the video stood in the corner of my room, his head tilted, his hollow eyes fixed on me. He didn't move, didn't make a sound. My body was frozen, paralyzed by fear. When I turned back to the screen, the feed was gone. My browser had closed itself. The only thing left on my screen was a single file, newly downloaded, silentroom.exe. I didn't open it. I shut my laptop, yanked the power cord from the wall, and ran. I left my apartment that night and never went back. That was 2 months ago. I've moved twice since then. I got rid of my laptop, my phone, anything that could connect to the internet. But it hasn't stopped. I still see him, in reflections, in the corner of my eye, in the shadows of my room at night. He's always there, always silent, always watching. And every morning, without fail, I find a new file on my computer, no matter how many times I destroy it. The files all have the same name, silentroom.exe. I don't know what happens if I open one, but I think I'm about to find out. I thought I was prepared for the DeepWeb. I really did. I'd read the horror stories, heard the urban legends, and convinced myself they were just exaggerated tales to scare the curious. But curiosity is a powerful thing, isn't it? Pushes you forward, even when every instinct is screaming at you to turn back. My descent started innocently enough. I was browsing a popular DeepWeb forum, filled with the usual chatter about hacking tips, conspiracy theories, and trading Bitcoin. Amid the usual noise, a thread caught my attention. The Dollmaker's Domain, for those who appreciate true art. It had no replies, no upvotes, no interaction. Just a link. I should have scrolled past it, but something about the title grabbed me. The Dollmaker? The name was unsettling, and I wondered if it was one of those infamous red rooms people whispered about. My curiosity got the better of me. When I clicked the link, the page that loaded was bare bones. Just a black background with white text in a serif font that read, "Art is pain. Pain is beauty. Enter if you seek to witness the sublime." Below it was a single button, Enter. The moment I clicked it, my screen glitched, flickering for a moment before resolving into a page that looked like an old-school photo gallery. Rows of images lined the screen, each one showing a doll. At first, they seemed like standard porcelain dolls, delicate, intricately designed, with glossy eyes and elegant clothing. But as I scrolled, I noticed something off. Their faces were too lifelike. The expressions were too raw, smiles frozen in terror, eyes that seemed to plead for help. One doll's face had faint red streaks trailing from its glassy eyes, like tears of blood. Another had a perfectly painted mouth, but the lips were sewn shut with thread. The hands were detailed down to the veins, and the fingernails looked disturbingly real. I clicked on one of the images. It opened a larger view, and I noticed something in the background. A darkened room, barely illuminated. Shelves lined the walls, each one crowded with more dolls, their lifeless eyes staring in every direction. My stomach churned when I noticed something else. The faint silhouette of a figure standing in the shadows, just beyond the reach of the light. A chat box popped up on the corner of the page. "Welcome to my gallery. Do you appreciate my work?" I hesitated before typing back. "Who are you?" There was a long pause, and then the reply came, "I am the doll maker. I create art from the unwilling." My hands trembled as I typed again. "What does that mean?" This time, the response was instant. "Let me show you." The screen shifted. The gallery disappeared, replaced by a grainy video feed. The room was dimly lit, its walls lined with shelves of dolls, just like the one I'd seen in the photo. At the center of the frame was a workbench, and on it lay a woman. She was alive barely. Her arms and legs were bound with thick ropes, her head tilted to one side. Her face was pale, streaked with sweat and tears. I felt bile rise in my throat as I noticed her left hand. Her fingers were gone, replaced by porcelain replicas that had been meticulously attached to her hand. The flesh around them was red and raw, stitched together with black thread. She tried to scream, but her mouth had been sewn shut. The camera panned slowly, revealing the doll maker. He was tall and thin, dressed in a black apron smeared with blood and paint. His face was hidden behind a plain white mask, featureless except for two small eye holes. He held a delicate brush in one hand and a scalpel in the other. The chat box blinked again. "Do you understand now? Art must be lived to be real." My instincts screamed at me to close the browser, to shut my laptop and throw it out the window. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, watching as he leaned over the woman, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then he began to work. He used the scalpel with precision, removing small pieces of her flesh and replacing them with porcelain replicas. Her arm, her cheek, even one of her eyes. The camera zoomed in on her face, capturing every moment of her agony. The chat box blinked again. "Beautiful, isn't she?" I slammed my laptop shut, my breathing ragged. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the edges of my desk. But the image was burned into my mind. The woman transformed piece by piece into something not quite human. I told myself it wasn't real. Couldn't be. It had to be some sick, elaborate hoax. But deep down, I knew the truth. For the next few days, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the dolls. Their lifeless eyes, their pleading expressions. I stopped using my laptop, terrified of what I might see if I logged back on. And then the package arrived. It was small, wrapped in plain brown paper with no return address. My name was scrawled on the front in an elegant script. I didn't want to open it. Every instinct screamed at me to throw it away, to burn it, to run. But I couldn't. My hands trembled as I peeled away the paper. Inside was a doll. It was the woman from the video. Her face was perfectly replicated in porcelain, her expression frozen in a twisted mix of terror and despair. Her sewn-shut mouth curved into a faint, mocking smile, and in her porcelain hand was a note. It read, "Art is pain. Pain is beauty. You will be next." That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I sat in my dark apartment, clutching the doll, waiting for something to happen. And when the knock came at my door, I didn't answer. But I know he's out there. The doll maker always finishes his work. Started as a drunken dare. My friends and I were hanging out at my apartment, half-empty beer bottles scattered across the table. Conversation drifted to conspiracy theories, and then, inevitably, to the DeepWeb. "You ever heard of the Echo Market?" Mike asked, his eyes gleaming with mischief. The name hung in the air like a bad smell. I hadn't, but from the reactions of the others, it seemed infamous. "Yeah," Sarah muttered, looking uneasy. "It's one of those urban legends, like red rooms or cursed websites." Mike leaned in, grinning. "It's real. A buddy of mine swears he found it once. They say it's a hidden marketplace where you can buy anything. Not drugs or weapons, but memories." "Memories?" I laughed. "What does that even mean?" "Like pieces of people," Mike said, lowering his voice. "Their voices, their dreams, even their fears. Stuff they've forgotten, or stuff they wish they could forget." The idea was ridiculous, and I told him as much. But he insisted it was real, and before long, the conversation turned into a challenge. "Prove it," I said, half drunk and full of bravado. Mike smirked, pulling out his laptop. Took a while. Finding anything on the deep web isn't as easy as Hollywood makes it seem. You don't just type creepy illegal stuff into Google. You need the right tools, the right forums, and more importantly, the right links. Mike navigated through layers of encrypted sites, each darker and more disturbing than the last. My buzz was starting to wear off, replaced by a growing sense of unease. Finally, he found it. The site was bare bones. A black screen with a single prompt blinking in white. "What do you seek?" "Type something," Mike said, shoving the laptop toward me. I hesitated, then typed, "memories." The screen flickered, and a new page loaded. It was a marketplace just like Mike had described. Each listing was a fragment of someone's life. The sound of a child's laughter, stolen from a playground. $100, a recurring nightmare about drowning. $250, the memory of a first kiss, erased from its owner's mind. $500, "What the hell?" I muttered, scrolling through the listings. Mike looked smug, but even he seemed unsettled. "Told you it was real." I clicked on one of the cheaper options, a memory of falling from a great height. The description read, "Feel the rush, the terror, the wind against your skin. Experience it as if it were your own." There was a Buy Now button, but I didn't click it. Instead, I noticed a chat window in the corner of the page. Someone had typed, "Looking for something specific?" I typed back, "Just browsing." The reply came almost instantly. "Everyone is looking for something. What do you want to forget?" I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. For a moment, I felt like the person on the other end could see me, could feel the thoughts swirling in my head. "Type something funny," Mike said, trying to break the tension. I typed, "I want to forget this conversation." The response was immediate. "Done." The screen glitched, and everything went black. When the laptop rebooted, the marketplace was gone. Mike shrugged it off, saying we'd probably hit a dead link, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The rest of the night passed uneventfully, but the next morning, I woke up with a splitting headache and a strange sense of emptiness. Something was missing, but I couldn't put my finger on what. It started small, forgetting where I'd left my keys, struggling to recall the name of a coworker I saw every day. But then the gaps grew bigger. Entire conversations vanished from my memory. I'd look at old photos and feel nothing, like they belonged to someone else. One day, I found a sticky note on my fridge with the words, "Call Mom," scrawled in my handwriting. But when I tried to dial her number, I realized I couldn't remember what her voice sounded like. Desperate for answers, I went back to the DeepWeb. It took weeks to retrace my steps, but eventually, I found the Echo Market again. This time, the listings felt more personal. The laughter of a friend you no longer speak to. The face of a lost loved one, blurred at the edges. The memory of a drunken dare gone wrong. I froze. That last one wasn't just a listing. It was my life. The description read, "A foolish challenge leads to irreversible loss. Sold to the highest bidder." Beneath it was a price, $10,000. Someone had bought my memory. The chat window popped up again. "Welcome back. What do you seek?" I typed furiously, "My memories. I want them back." The reply came slowly this time, as if whoever was on the other side was savoring the moment. "Memories cannot be returned, but perhaps we can make a trade." I stared at the screen, trembling. "What do you want?" The answer chilled me to the bone. "Your voice." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I thought about the void in my mind, the pieces of myself that were slipping away, and the laughter I couldn't hear anymore. Before I could make a decision, the screen flickered and a new message appeared. "Offer accepted. Thank you for your contribution." The laptop shut off. It's been weeks since then. I can't speak anymore. Not a whisper, not a scream. And the gaps in my memory are worse than ever. Sometimes late at night I hear faint echoes. Laughter, screams, whispers. Fragments of stolen lives, carried on a digital wind. The Echo Market is always open, waiting for its next customer. And once you enter, you can never leave. It all started when I inherited my uncle's old desktop computer. He'd passed away suddenly. Heart attack, they said, and left behind a small apartment filled with dusty books, yellowed papers, and a tower of outdated tech. My uncle had always been the black sheep of the family. A recluse, a conspiracy theorist, the guy who'd show up to Thanksgiving with rants about government mind control and hidden networks. My parents dismissed him as crazy, but he was the only adult who treated me like an equal when I was a kid. Cleaning out his apartment, I stumbled across a handwritten note taped to the monitor of his computer. "For those who dare to look beyond the veil." I booted up the machine late one night, curiosity outweighing my better judgment. The computer was ancient, its operating system a relic from the early 2000s. Yet, as soon as it powered on, it felt alive. Programs I didn't recognize populated the desktop, many with cryptic names like Gatekeeper and Vault_777. In one corner was a folder labeled The Archive. The folder required a password, but I guessed correctly on my third try, Eidolon. It was a word my uncle used to mutter under his breath sometimes, one of his many eccentricities. Inside the folder were hundreds of files, each named after a person, names I didn't recognize. The files were unnervingly small, just a few kilobytes each. I clicked on one at random. The screen went black. Then a video began to play. It was grainy, like it had been recorded on an old camcorder. A man sat at a kitchen table, nervously glancing over his shoulder. He looked terrified. "They found me," he whispered. "If you're watching this, it's already too late for me. Don't trust the archivist. Don't." The video cut out abruptly, replaced by a text file that opened on its own. It read, "Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. Shall we continue?" At that point, I should have stopped, but something about the computer held me captive. Its whirring fan, the faint hum of electricity, the way the text seemed to stare back at me like a challenge. Another folder appeared on the desktop, labeled Deep Routes. Inside was a single executable file, access.exe. When I ran it, the screen filled with cascading code, and my home Wi-Fi disconnected. I was plunged into a network I didn't recognize. The interface was stark and alien, and I quickly realized I wasn't in control. The computer navigated on its own, pulling up page after page of the deepest, darkest corners of the web. There were sites advertising forbidden knowledge, encrypted forums buzzing with coded messages, and markets selling things no one should ever be able to sell. And then a chat window popped up. Archivist, welcome to the archive. I've been waiting for you. I froze. Me? Who are you? Archivist. A curator. A keeper of secrets. A guide for the curious. Your uncle introduced you, didn't he? That stopped me cold. How did it know about my uncle? Me? What do you want? Archivist. Not what I want. It's about what you want. Shall we make a trade? The cursor blinked, waiting for my reply. The archivist explained its game. It had access to knowledge. Secrets hidden in the forgotten corners of the internet. Mysteries lost to time. Answers to questions I didn't even know I had. But nothing was free. To receive, I had to give. Started small. I asked it how my uncle had really died. It wanted a memory, just a small one, a forgotten birthday, a time I'd fallen off my bike as a kid. I agreed, and the answer came instantly. He'd been murdered, suffocated in his sleep by an intruder who'd stolen nothing but his laptop. The memory I gave up vanished completely. I tried to recall that birthday, and there was nothing but a blank space in my mind. It was unsettling, but I rationalized it away. Over the following weeks, I returned to the archivist again and again. Each time, the stakes got higher. I traded the sound of my mother's voice for the coordinates of a sunken ship filled with Nazi gold. I gave up the memory of my first kiss in exchange for the name of someone plotting to assassinate a world leader. The knowledge it offered was intoxicating, each revelation pulling me deeper into its web. But with every trade, I felt more hollow, more disconnected from myself. One night, the archivist made an offer of its own. Archivist, you've proven yourself worthy. It's time for the final trade. Me, what do you want? Archivist, your essence, your being. In return, I will give you immortality within the archive. I didn't understand. Me, what does that mean? Archivist, you will live forever as a part of the network. Free from the chains of mortality, your consciousness will become data. Your thoughts preserved eternally. Sounded insane. But by then, I was so far gone, so addicted to the secrets the archivist had revealed, that I actually considered it. Before I could reply, my screen flickered. A second chat window opened. Unknown, don't do it. Disconnect now. The message came from an anonymous source, their IP masked. Unknown, the archivist isn't what it seems. It doesn't trade, it consumes. Everyone who bargains with it disappears. It feeds on your soul, leaving nothing behind. My hands trembled. I looked at the archivist's chat window, then back at the anonymous message. Archivist, don't listen to the interloper. They envy you. You are on the brink of greatness. The two messages overlapped, my screen glitching as if the computer itself was fighting for control. In a panic, I yanked the power cord from the wall. The screen went dark, and for a moment, so did my mind. When I came to, the computer was gone. Not just turned off, literally gone, as if it had never existed. It's been months since that night, and I still don't know what really happened. I've started forgetting things again, important things. My uncle's face, my own childhood, the sound of my own voice. And sometimes, late at night, I hear the faint hum of a computer booting up. The archivist isn't done with me yet.